And this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about the Sentimental Gentleman of Swing, Tommy Dorsey. Born Thomas Francis Dorsey Jr. in Pennsylvania in 1905, music was in his blood. Growing up with his brother Jimmy, the kid was blowing the trombone like a pro before most teens even had a summer job. Fast forward to the early 30s, the Dorsey brothers were lighting up the big band scene. But in 35, Tommy takes a bold step, going solo with the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra. And that sound, smooth, precise, powerful enough to fill a ballroom without breaking a sweat. He had a great ear for talent too. In 1940, he hired a rising star called Frank Sinatra. Together, they scored the first ever Billboard #1 hit, I'll Never Smile Again. Sinatra himself said Tommy's breath control changed his whole singing game. The hits, they just kept rolling. Opus One, yes indeed, live shows, recording sessions, Tommy's crew was always tight. Critics called him a perfectionist, dancers just called him irresistible. From the birth of swing into the early rock and roll years, Tommy Dorsey kept the nation moving. Tommy Dorsey, he made swing romantic and romance swing. And that was some insight into the biography and best hits of Tommy Dorsey. More details coming up. Also coming up, some trending album news. And this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Tommy Dorsey, his life and times and best hits. During this hour, we're going to be talking about his biography. Tommy Dorsey was born Thomas Francis Dorsey Jr. on November 19, 1905, in a coal mining town in Pennsylvania. His father, Thomas Sr., worked in the mines but also taught music, and he made sure his sons, Tommy and his older brother Jimmy, grew up surrounded by it. Tommy started on the corner before switching to the trombone, and it wasn't long before he was playing in his father's local band. In the 1920s, the Dorsey brothers began making their way into the professional music world. They played in territory bands touring the East Coast, and by the late 20s they were working with some of the biggest names in jazz, including Gene Goldcutt and Paul Whiteman. Both brothers became top studio musicians in New York, recording on hundreds of sides for other artists. They even backed up Bing Crosby in his early days. By 1934, the brothers decided to form their own band, the Dorsey Brothers Orchestra. They had hits, they had talent, but they also had, let's say, strong personalities. Tommy's perfectionism was legendary. Jimmy was more easygoing, and the clash came to a head in 1935. The story goes that Tommy walked out in the middle of a recording session over a disagreement about tempo. The next day, he had his own band. And that was the start of the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra. Right away, Dorsey made his mark. His trombone tone was like nothing else. Pure, smooth, liquid gold. His theme song, I'm Getting Sentimental Over You, wasn't just a calling card, it was a statement. When audiences heard those opening bars, they knew that they were in for something special. Tommy had an incredible ear for talent. In 1940, he hired a kid from Hoboken, Frank Sinatra, and paired him with the Pied Pipers vocal group. The results were magic. I'll Never Smile Again became a #1 hit and their first chart topper in Billboard history. Sinatra learned a lot from Dorsey, especially breath control. He used to watch Tommy playing long, unbroken phrases on the trombone, and he studied how to do the same with his voice. Sinatra later said, "Everything I know about phrasing, I learned from Tommy." It wasn't just Sinatra. Dorsey's roster over the years included drummer Buddy Rich, arranger Cy Oliver, trumpeter Buddy Berrigan, and saxophonist Bud Freeman. His bands could swing hard with numbers like Opus One and Well Get It, tunes that filled dance floors across America. Behind the scenes, Tommy was known for being a tough boss. Some musicians said he was demanding to the point of being intimidating, but they also admitted that he ran one of the tightest, most disciplined bands in the business. After World War II, like many big bands, Dorsey faced a decline of the swing era. Audiences were shifting towards smaller groups, bebop, and later rhythm and blues. But Tommy adapted. He made radio appearances, took the band on the road, and in the mid-1950s reunited with Jimmy for the Dorsey Brothers stage show. Broadcast on television from New York, the show introduced a whole new generation to swing, and even gave Elvis Presley his first national TV exposure in 1956. Sadly, Tommy's story had a sudden ending. On November 26, 1956, just 2 weeks after his 51st birthday, he died unexpectedly in his sleep. The official cause was choking after a heavy meal, and the news stunned the music world. Sinatra, by then a superstar, spoke openly about what Tommy had meant to him, not just as a mentor but as a friend. Tommy Dorsey left behind more than 300 charted recordings, countless radio broadcasts, and a sound that defined an era. His trombone could be tender or brash, sweet or swinging, but it always had that signature polish. Critics still talk about his tone as one of the most beautiful ever produced on the instrument. Even now, more than 6 decades after his passing, his music lives on, not just in the nostalgia market but in the repertoires of swing bands, in film soundtracks and more. And this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's Tommy Dorsey, his biography and best hits. Now it's time for some trending album news. The Deep Energy Orchestra is back and they're taking things to a whole new level with their third studio album, The Science of Sound, dropping October 24th on 7D Media. This is not just an album, it's a worldwide super collaboration. Led by bassist, composer and producer Jason Everett, the science of sound fuses classical rhythms, jazz, funk and orchestral textures into one massive genre-bustling experience. And check out the lineup. We are talking Joe Dennison from Kansas on electric violin, Gary Husband from Shakti and the Fourth Dimension, Trey Gunn of King Crimson, Adam Holzman from the Miles Davis Band, Indian percussion master V. Selvaganish, and a full string section. This is like if Mahavishnu Orchestra, Shakti and Snarky Puppy decided to have a cosmic jam session and invited every top player they knew. 8 tracks, 6 penned by Everett himself, you get the power of Morning over Madrid, the playful energy of Solar Playground, the tight counterpoint of Captain Quirk, and the meditative beauty of stargazing. And here's the thing, it's not just chops for the sake of chops. Every note serves the bigger picture. This is a full-on sonic journey from start to finish. The critics, they're already calling Jason Everett a force of nature. His bass work dazzles, but it's the way he writes and arranges that leaves you in awe. Bass Guitar magazine says he blends Eastern vibrato, complex rhythms and world grooves like nobody else. And All About Jazz says Deep Energy Orchestra isn't just a supergroup, they are a family. And get this, even Joe Dennison from Kansas says playing with this band gives him a dopamine rush. So mark it down, The Science of Sound, October 24th on 7D Media. And that was some trending album news on the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. We're going for a short break, we'll be right back after that. When we come back, we're going to be talking about some of Tommy Dorsey's best albums of all time. Here's a quick recap of what's coming up. First up, The Sentimental Gentleman of Swing. If you only spin one Tommy Dorsey album, this is the one. It kicks off with his signature I'm Getting Sentimental Over You, that silky trombone entrance that could freeze dancers mid-spin. Then suddenly it lights up with Mari, where Dorsey locked the vocals right into the band's groove. And don't sleep on Song of India, a lush jazz ballad that turns Rimsky-Korsakov into pure Hollywood magic. Critics call it a textbook in swing era arranging. Next, rewind to the early jazz sides. This is Dorsey before the tuxedos, raw, loose and grinning through every chorus. Tracks like Tailspin and The Morning After are hot, swagger-filled and packed with cymbal crashes and call and response fire. It's a missing link between gritty hot jazz and polished swing. And of course, you can't talk Dorsey without the essential Frank Sinatra with the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra. 2 legends, 1 mic. Sinatra's first number 1, I'll Never Smile Again. The dance between voice and trombone is magic. Then East of the Sun, young Frank mastering that all across the beat phrasing that he learned straight from Tommy himself. Critics say 2 artists elevating each other. Fans, they just call it musical comfort food. And that was some insight into what's coming up during this hour, and this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. We're going for a short break, we'll be right back after that. Stay tuned. And this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Tommy Dorsey, his biography and best hits. During this hour, we're going to be talking about some of his best albums of all time. The first one's called The Sentimental Gentleman of Swing. This isn't just an album, it's a definitive portrait of Tommy Dorsey in his prime. If you only ever heard one record of his, this would be the one that I'd hand you. It opens as it should with I'm Getting Sentimental Over You. Now that song wasn't just his theme tune, it was his signature. You could walk into a ballroom, hear that first trombone slide and instantly know Dorsey was in the building. What's remarkable about this performance is the control. The opening phrase floats in like silk, but it's not soft in the sense of weak, it's deliberate, measured and absolutely confident. Dorsey had this uncanny ability to play at a whisper and still command the room. Music historian Will Friedwell once wrote that Dorsey's trombone spoke the language of romance better than any singer of his day. And listening to this track, it's hard to disagree. The set moves into Mari, a much brighter swinging piece where you get to hear how he integrated vocalists into the band's arrangements. In the late 1930s, most bandleaders treated singers like intermissions between instrumentals. Dorsey flipped that. He made the vocals part of the texture, equal to the brass, the reeds and the rhythm section. It's a big reason why so many great singers wanted to work with him later. Critically, this album has been praised for decades. Downbeat magazine has called it the textbook swing era arranging, and customer reviews today often focus on the clarity of recent masters. One listener on Amazon said, it's like stepping into the Roseland ballroom in its prime. You can practically feel the floor shake under the dancers. That's exactly right, the energy is there even in the slow numbers. It's that mix of elegance and vitality that makes a Sentimental Gentleman of Swing an essential listen. Another album called Tommy Dorsey, The Early Jazz Sides. If the first album is a finished portrait, this one's a sketchbook. The early jazz sides take us back to the years before Dorsey's orchestra became a household name, back when he was still refining his leadership style and experimenting with the arrangements. You hear it right away. The band sounds looser here, more like hot jazz outfit than a strict dance orchestra. Tracks like Tailspin and The Morning After have an almost raw quality to them. The brass pushes a little harder, the reeds answer with quick phrases, and the rhythm section, well, the drummers in these sessions weren't shy. You get more cymbal crashes, more brass walking lines, it's lively, maybe even a little chaotic in spots. From a historical standpoint, these sides are important because they show Dorsey's roots. He came up in the world of territory bands and big city jazz clubs, and you can hear those influences here. There's more call and response between the trumpets and trombones, more collective improvisation instead of strictly written parts. Critics have called this period the bridge between hot jazz and full-blown swing, and they're right. If you're used to the polished Dorsey sounds of the late 30s and early 40s, these early tracks might surprise you. They've got teeth. Listeners online often say this is less polished, more alive. One review put it perfectly. This is Dorsey before the tuxedo. More grit, more brass, more swagger. And that's exactly why it's worth hearing. You can almost see the band on a cramped stage, trading grins as they push through another hot chorus. And the essential Frank Sinatra with the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra. If you want one-stop shopping for Sinatra-Dorsey collaboration, this is where you start. It's a career-spanning collection of their biggest moments together, from I'll Never Smile Again to Polka Dots and Moonbeams. I'll Never Smile Again is a crown jewel here. Recorded in 1940, it became Sinatra's first #1 hit and first chart topper in Billboard history. What's striking about this track is the restraint. Sinatra barely raises his voice above a murmur, and yet it carries. Behind him, Dorsey's orchestra is all elegance, the trombone phrasing so perfectly supportive that it's almost like a duet between horn and voice. Another highlight is East of the Sun and West of the Moon, which shows Sinatra's lighter side, still romantic but with a playful bounce in the phrasing. You can hear him starting to master the art of singing across the beat, a technique he learned in part from watching how Dorsey shaped his trombone lines. Critics love this set because it covers both the hits and the deep cuts. Downbeat called a portrait of two artists elevating each other's work. Listeners online often say it's their go-to Sinatra with Dorsey collection, with one reviewer calling it musical comfort food you never get tired of. And this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Tommy Dorsey, his biography and best hits. Now it's time for some trending music news. Mark your calendars. On September 26th, Universal Music Enterprises and Frank Sinatra Enterprises are dropping a brand new double vinyl connection called the Giants of Jazz. We're talking Frank Sinatra's legendary team-ups with Count Basie and Duke Ellington. 2 albums, both freshly remastered. It might as well be Swing with Basie's orchestra and Francis A. and Edward K. with Ellington and his big band. You'll get classics like The Best Is Yet to Come, the definitive Fly Me to the Moon, and that smooth Indian summer with a Johnny Hodges sax solo that'll give you goosebumps. And if you're an early bird, you can pre-order right now through the official store. Plus, bonus, Sinatra is also dropping a 4-inch tiny vinyl of Jingle Bells and Silent Night on September 12th. This fall, you're going to want to clear some space on that turntable because the Giants of Jazz are coming home. And that was some trending music news on the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. We're going for a short break. We'll be right back after that. When we come back, we're going to be talking about more of Tommy Dorsey's best albums of all time.